welcome in to fans interference here on a Monday night, and it's a pretty special occasion tonight. We had a heck of a weekend in sports. Stephen Curry going off versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this dude's on another level right now. But we wanted to give fans interference an opportunity to really catch them up on what happened this weekend at the Combine and also with NBA action.
Just want to welcome everybody to Fans Interference, the show. Again, Monday night, eve of Super Tuesday, and a lot of exciting things. We've got some nice clips, and let's take it away. I see we've got some clips there on the right.
We do have some clips. This is Thursday, and this is when Stephen Curry just torched the Orlando Magic. And Bruce, when you look at Stephen Curry, he just has this ability. He's 6'4", limited athletically, but he's just mastered the art of shooting and ball handling, and just one of the more likable athletes out there. And is it because you could kind of relate to Stephen Curry in terms of being one of the smaller guys on the floor, or just the style of play that he comes with every night?
I think everybody could relate to Stephen Curry. He's 185 pounds, so if he showed up at your YMCA, you might not even pick him first. But what makes him so special, really three things. Number one, unbelievable dribbler, unbelievable handler. Number two, his release is unparalleled. We've looked at sports science. Nobody releases the ball better. And then, of course, his accuracy. His range, literally, he can throw him in from half court, and supremely confident, but yet likable, humble in his own way, funny, doesn't take himself too seriously. The most likable and most exciting professional athlete on the planet, in my opinion.
I think so too, because his teammates, he doesn't seem to really relish the spot, or he doesn't seem to just need the spotlight. You know, he's very willing to give praise to his teammates, and he's such a team guy. He's kind of a quiet character off the floor, but yet you'll still see him dance like when he makes unbelievable shots, you know, towards the end of quarters, and when you see him take like half-court shots and make them. I think he honestly practices these shots like 15, 20 times a day. I think he's outworked everybody. A lot of it is talent. Like, you know, Bruce, like, we aren't just going to be able to go into the NBA, and if we work 10,000 hours like Malcolm Gladwell would say, we wouldn't be Steph Curry's level, because you have to have a certain amount of natural ability, and his own father, Dell, was a great player. As an NBA pro, and that's why Steph Curry has a ton of natural ability, but it's just his ability to work at the game. And the Warriors are the most likable team that's a favorite. Would you say that?
I would. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, you look at Golden State, they don't really have a natural rival, so nobody really dislikes them.
Right.
It's not like New York, L.A., or Chicago where people are going to dislike the Warriors. And if you look at their team, there's nobody on the team that's really dislikable. Certainly, Klay Thompson is a quiet guy. Draymond Green is a very excited guy. He apparently had a massive tantrum at halftime before the OKC second half, and since has apologized for it. And you look at Steve Kerr, you know, All-American guy on the Wheaties box. But Steve was he was on the Jordan Bulls, but he was a guy a little bit like Curry, who was a three-point wizard. And so it's only appropriate that he has Steve Kerr as his coach.
You look at Golden State as well, and Stephen Curry, I hope that he's able to keep this up. He's also a product of his teammates, Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green, having the offensive minds of Luke Walton and Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr, like, he'll challenge his guys to get triple-doubles. The most laissez-faire, chill coach in the NBA to play for. If I could play for one guy, it would be Steve Kerr. And you know what also happened this weekend, along with Steph going wild? The NFL Combine. And this clip right here is one that is for the second overall pick in Mel Kiper's mock draft, and his name is Carson Wentz. He's out of Bismarck, North Dakota, and nobody had heard of Carson Wentz unless you're a fan of FCS football. No one had heard of him except if you're a big FCS guy up until really a week ago.
Well, that's true. I mean, well, for the most part, that's true. As far as casual fans, nobody heard of him. Certainly, if for the draftniks and people in the offseason, Mel Kiper, who is considered the guru, looking at him, he's really has a lot of intangibles. Well, or I should say tangibles. Number one, he's a big guy. He's large, 6 foot, what, 6'5", 6'5".
Very cool.
And you watch his clips and you see tremendous arm talent. You also see a guy who's mobile in the pocket. There he goes. He goes off left hand into the end zone. Also, we've seen a lot of his interviews. He's an All-American guy. He's a hard worker. He's a gym rat. And he's a guy who doesn't bring a lot of ego to the table. As far as we can tell, he would fit perfectly in Cleveland because, yes, he'd be happy in Cleveland, unlike Jared Goff, who's in Berkeley, California, and likes a vacation in Malibu. Cleveland and North Dakota State are similar in their small market venues. And it looks like he would be a perfect choice because the Johnny Manziel era, that ship has come and gone. And Cleveland's number 2. Tennessee picking number 1. The one thing they don't need is a quarterback.
Very, very true. If a team wanted to go out and grab Wentz, I believe that they could do it by trading with Tennessee. And Tennessee needs a boatload of assets and players at multiple positions, cornerback, wide receiver, as well as tackles to protect Marcus Mariota. So we all expect Laramie Tunsil, if Tennessee keeps the pick out of Ole Miss, the left tackle, to protect against Mariota's blind side. What Cleveland needs is they need a clean-cut face of the franchise, and they need, the word starts with an S, and I've said it during the Redskins podcast, Cleveland needs stability. Brandon Weeden, Brady Quinn, Tim Couch, Derek Anderson. You know what these quarterbacks
and Johnny
have?
Manziel, of course. How can we forget him?
They're all drafted. They're all selected in the late 20s. And guess what? They are a merry-go-round, a revolving door. They stay in Cleveland for 2 years. They plummet, they fall, they falter, and then they leave, and a new coach comes in. A new coach drafts a quarterback, and you know what happens to that quarterback? 24 months, and bye-bye, Cleveland. You now need a new coach and quarterback. So you know what Hugh Jackson needs? They need stability. Carson Wentz, clean cut. What Carson Wentz likes to do is he likes to go out in North Dakota. He likes to hunt. He likes to be alone with nature. That's the polar opposite of going to nightclubs like Johnny Manziel and drinking tons of alcohol and talking to tons of girls. I believe Carson Wentz might even be engaged, a big plus. And you're right. He came from Bismarck, North Dakota, from Fargo. He knows the Midwest. He knows the weather there. He's a solid guy. No-brainer, 6'5", and he won't be a bust. He's going to be like Matt Ryan, build around this kid, Cleveland.
I agree. And if you just remember when Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook went to OKC, they put that town on the map, and OKC is now a destination spot for NBA players. Likewise, Cleveland has always been down and out. There's been no stability, revolving door of coaches, revolving door of quarterbacks, and it's time. This seems like a no-brainer.
And you look at Carson Wentz here in the NFL Combine and just the physical capabilities. I just don't see Carson Wentz really being a bust at the next level. I think he's like a Matt Ryan. What would you kind of compare him to from watching him?
Well, he's a little bit, again, he's a little bit like a Matthew Stafford in the sense that he's a solidly built guy. He's got very good arm talent. And again, we don't know that much about him. We've seen him in interviews, but I think that, again, you don't want to compare anybody to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think his arm is, that's a very special guy. Right. I think I'll go with Matthew Stafford. Okay. We don't want to overvalue him right now.
Well, the thing about Matthew Stafford is he can throw from different platforms as well, and that's going to lead us to our next quarterback candidate. This guy is selected in a lot of mock drafts, either going 2 or 3, from the University of Memphis, we are now going to evaluate Paxton Lynch. And this is one of the more fun quarterbacks to evaluate because Paxton Lynch, Bruce, from watching him, tell us a little bit about Paxton Lynch.
Paxton Lynch also he's a large guy. He's 6'7", and he has I think very good arm talent. I think for his size, he's very mobile. He's also a very I think I'll use the word funny. Watching him evade, again, he's playing for Memphis. So if you watch him try to evade rushers, at times it's very humorous to watch. But he's got much more mobility than certainly a Sam Bradford. When you see him in the interview room, he kind of seems, these are all young guys. He kind of seems a little young, maybe a little naive. It's hard to judge. He's not as introspective and deep as a Jared Goff, who seems like, very like a Rhodes Scholar. This guy just seems, again, like a hardworking guy, all-American, salt-of-the-earth guy, kind of a blue-collar attitude, which I like.
Definitely.
A little bit like we know that Andrew Luck, obviously when you hear him talk, he's got a voice he talks like this. He's got a voice like
gremlin.
He does. He looks like a gremlin, but yet he's from Stanford. You know he's a brilliant guy. He's an engineer. This guy kind of has a demeanor of an Andrew Luck, like a total. You could see this guy going to a construction site, and the bottom line is, I think he is.
I think he's like Johnny Depp.
He's
with
a good
mustache.
leader.
If you listen to his interviews,
he's a funny guy. Like we like humor here. Watch his highlights. Some of them are hysterical. I mean, I think this guy will be popular.
I'm showing all the good ones, and
you're not showing you're showing the clean ones.
We're showing the clean ones. We're going to get to ones where he's scrambling for his life, kind of like playing a video game or showing Tim Tebow. But when this guy's interviewed, Carson Wentz has been coached up. He sort of naturally fits the build of an all-American guy that is very clean cut, concise with his answers, and just very solid in the interview room. Paxton Lynch seems a little bit more he just doesn't come across using incredible language during his interviews, and I think that's something that he can improve. He's kind of like Nick Foles-ish. Says all the right things, like we're going to fight, we're going to challenge, we're going to, I'm going to prepare, we're going to fight. You know how Nick Foles kind of gave the same answer.
Nick Foles is the king of the cliche. Now, again, you got to remember these are young guys in there.
Oh, yeah.
How old is this guy? 22 years old. He can't be much older than that. So there's going to be a lot of developing. And again, at Memphis, it's not like he's highly seasoned, like he's had a gigantic press corps. But certainly here in Philadelphia, this guy, the question is, are they going to sign Sam Bradford? It seems like certainly the agent is pushing that they're going to be signing him. And if they do, obviously, then that will be the end. They won't be drafting him.
Here's the thing about Paxton Lynch. I think he would fit great in Philadelphia. Like his attitude, you could tell he's a great kid. In terms of reading defenses, now that's the ultimate challenge. And I'm going to put on a tape from Houston, and you guys are going to be able to view this for about 5 solid minutes here. And
I don't hope not. I think that's the remainder of our show. How about more like 20 solid seconds?
Oh, man, that's cutting them a little bit short. We're going to give them a couple of minutes here to digest Paxton. But you look at him, and he doesn't seem like he has as big of a football IQ as Carson Wentz, that's played at North Dakota State. And Carson Wentz played in a pro-style offense. And you look at Paxton Lynch, a lot of screen passes, a lot of gadget plays, a lot of just
These are funny. These are humorous.
A lot of run around to just use your athletic
The bottom line is nobody looks good getting sacked. Even Tom Brady looks terrible. So a couple of these sacks are certainly funny. Look at him scrambling around like a bit of a Johnny Manziel in terms of improvising. A rough guy.
A bit of Kevin
He
Cobb.
needs, listen, he definitely needs some coaching. He's rough. His footwork at times is really funny, but he's got good arm strength. So
it's totally rough. It's like you have a piece of clay, but that clay has
he's
so
a diamond.
much potential.
He's a diamond that needs to be carved up, and the Eagles would be perfect. They've got Frank Wright, they've got John DeFilippo, and of course they've got Doug Peterson. So they've got 3 quarterbacks coaches. Who better than to polish this guy like a diamond?
Exactly. You look at Carson Wentz, and he's kind of like the diamond already. Like you're not going to get like a much better diamond than what he's proposing to you. This guy, under the right coaching, could really be special. I mean, you know how Kaepernick was special for those couple years? Just a next-level athlete, but I could definitely see him really struggling in the NFL because of coverages, because it's really one read and go. It's a spread offense in Conference USA. Those are all really red flags, and you've seen athletic quarterbacks like this that jump out at you, in film room watching a couple of plays. He needs to work on his consistency. It could easily falter. He could easily have a rough career if he goes somewhere like Jeff Fisher or Rex Ryan, coaches that are defensive-oriented and don't really care about really carving the quarterback position for Paxton in the future.
I agree. Let's move on to Jared Goff, who's our third quarterback that we're profiling in this show. We're here at Fans Interference, this show. Want to thank all the viewers for tuning in, for streaming us, and for liking us and sharing it with your friends. And as you know, we're going to be just dealing with whatever's coming down the pike.
No
Obviously, Steph Curry, NFL Combine, and at the end, of course, we have a little surprise in the humor category. We have one guy who provided us with a very
You
humorous.
don't want to give him away.
We don't want to give it away
It's
yet.
a tease. It's a tease.
A little tease. Let's look at Jared
Little
Goff.
tease.
He's not that funny, but I think he's very smart.
Kind of funny. He's okay. Like he is the most interesting personality of this draft class. He's kind of a snarky, a little bit of an elitist attitude. He's definitely like all boys school type of, slick back hair type of attitude that he's gonna kind of like give you a hard time if you don't like say something correctly to him. He's that guy who has a chip on his shoulder. That's why we agree. Well, I just want to hear you talk about Jared in Cleveland and what you would think of that relationship.
I don't think it would work out very well. I think that this guy is from Berkeley. He's an All-American boy. He's a little Matt Barkley-ish. He looks like Chad Pennington. And I don't think Cleveland's for everybody, especially in the wintertime. And I think Jared Goff, in looking at his highlights, what I like about him is he's intelligent, he's polished, he's got good footwork. I think he's got just average arm talent, athleticism, average. And this is a year where there are no Andrew Lucks, there are no Aaron Rodgers. So these guys, I think, are going to be drafted higher than usual. I think all three quarterbacks will likely go in the first round, only because it's a quarterback-driven league. And I think some people like Jared Goff. He's very, very good interviewer, very fiery. After a loss, certainly you like his backbone and you like his competitive spirit.
I think he's tough, but we mentioned that that Carson Wentz was All-American, but there could be differences in the category. I think that Jared Goff is more of a coaster, whether it's New York or out there on the West Coast. He's used to a larger market. He's used to the beach. He's not like a laid-back California guy, though. If you look at him in his interviews, he's kind of a perfectionist. He's a guy that will argue with a head coach, so you kind of have to have a thick skin there. He's going to be a fun guy to work with. He certainly cares a ton about football, and that's why I think this guy could be successful because of his intellect, because of his competitive attitude. I don't think he's going to be laissez-faire. There's some quarterbacks on third down that when they have to leave the field on third down, they kind of shrug or don't seem that affected by missing third downs. You saw that a little bit with Kevin Cobb. You see that with some quarterbacks, Bruce, where when they miss on a third down, they're kind of nonchalant. Even Bradford, they're kind of used to and accept to missing third downs. I like that Jared Goff will go to the sidelines if he doesn't get a first down and actually get really upset and pissed off that he doesn't get a first down. So that's a quality about Jared that I really like.
Also, when you look at these highlights, you'll see that he does play in a pro-style offense. He does drop back. He's got good wide receivers, and he's up against good talent. Certainly, you're looking at UCLA, USC. You got the Oregons right there. And so you've got a guy who's been up against first-class Division I talent, and that differs really from the first two guys we profiled who really play in marginal leagues and who are going to have a little bit of developing to do.
Well, I wanted to mention, though, that Cal plays in the spread offense, and if you look at Oregon versus Washington games, there's not much defense being played late at night here on the East Coast. So,
well, I'm not talking about defense. I'm not saying they're going up against big, burly guys. I'm just talking about the
quality.
Just the open. It's really opened wide, and obviously it's a West Coast. And I think his receivers, from looking at the highlights, he's used to throwing against guys who could run routes and catch the ball. And I think that it'll be interesting. Do we have any sense where Goff could he end up in Houston, or who do you think would be interested in him?
So the quarterback class, you have the LA Rams, and
I think he'd fit perfectly. He'd fit in perfectly with LA, and bringing the franchise to LA. He's a West Coast guy. I think he'd be popular. The Rams are somewhat of a dull team, and I think this guy could be a flashy guy. I think this guy could be a Los Angeles guy.
Jackson said about the Browns, and they're really the most popular selection because they're going to be drafting a quarterback. Some people have him going to Dallas too, behind Tony Romo. That would be an interesting mix. You think that Goff needs to start immediately or no? And also an interesting tidbit before we end the Jared Goff convo is Hugh Jackson said that hand size is very important, and Goff's hands were 9. So if you read that statement straight up accurately, it would mean that Hugh Jackson is more of a fan of Carson Wentz and his 10-inch hands than Jared Goff, or it could be a smokescreen.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that Jared Goff always thought he had big hands, and we have so many parameters. They measure almost every part of the body, excluding some other ones that we'll be seeing on demonstration in our last clip. But I don't think there's going to be a lot about hand size, and it's not as if Goff is a great fumbler or is a guy who's losing the ball. His hand size is fine.
I don't get why Dallas is drafting a quarterback.
Well, I can tell you why. Tony Romo is going through a major surgery. He's going to have a plate put in his clavicle, which is his collarbone. He's fractured it so many times. He's 36 years old. He's had fractured ribs, fractured clavicles, and again, he's not chronologically that old, but he's been beaten up through his whole career. He's certainly a warrior, and guys like this, they sometimes just fall off the world, and you need somebody to come up, and I think a Goff would be good coming up to tutor behind him. One thing about Romo is he's a very articulate, very intellectual guy. Even when we saw him receiving golf lessons from David Faraday, he's unbelievably type A. I think him and Goff are actually similar guys. I think they get along pretty well.
That's true, and his personality would certainly fit in with Romo. But when you have a 36-year-old quarterback, you're that close to signing Matt Forte and Des Bryant. You almost beat Green Bay in the divisional round. I think Dallas should use the pick for Vernon Hargraves to solidify their secondary. When you have a 36-year-old, you think Tony Romo says, you know what? Instead of getting a great player to try to win this year, Tony, we're just going to get the backup for you. Or do you think Tony's gonna talk to Jerry Jones and Garrett and say, listen, I want a defensive player that can help my team get to the next level? Because I think Dallas is closer than a lot of people think, and that is part of the reason why they should think about the now and solidifying a great run for a really solid pro quarterback in Tony Romo.
Well, certainly if we look at the GM situation here with Howie Roseman, the one rule of thumb is you don't want to be in a great hurry to pick your successor so you could be fired. So I think with Tony Romo, it's only human nature. Do you want to bring out a guy who you're going to always be looking at? The most popular position on the field is the backup quarterback, but it's not really his choice. Jerry's going to make the choice, but Dallas certainly has some holes at defense. They could use a defensive lineman, and we'll see how that plays out. I think it's time we go to our last guy. I think this podcast, we're nearing the end of this Fans Interference, the show, indeed. Monday night podcast.
And we have Chris Jones from Mississippi State, and for several reasons, we will not show you the full conclusion of this video, but if you'd like to provide a preview, an overview of what you have seen from Chris Jones during the Combine, you may.
Yes, if you want to Google, if you want to, certainly you need to be 18 or over. And if you want to see Chris Jones, just Google wardrobe malfunction, Chris Jones NFL Combine. And also, if you're really a glutton for punishment, just Google the Vine so you can really catch all the fun parts. This is what we call the agony of defeat with Chris Jones. You want to pull him up. I think we have a screenshot of him.
It's up there already.
Oh, it's up there. Okay, there it is. Sorry. Contacts are getting a little foggy late at night. So you can see him, he looks ready. He looks like a kind of a mixture of a shot putter, a defensive lineman getting ready to run. But what happens is he didn't make it all 40 yards because about, I'd say, 36 yards in, he had a wardrobe malfunction. He literally flopped straight down, and I guess he has that wardrobe malfunction. And everybody was worried that he was hurt, and he mentioned that his genitalia popped out of his shorts. That's the problem when you put a 300-pound guy in spandex shorts. And Rich Eisen had some great lines. He said, "This is what the combine's all about." He landed hard and he landed long, and thank God Chris Jones. I think he'll get more publicity than anybody, and I think that every NFL team will notice him because of his great performance in the 40-yard dash. And nobody even knows what his time was because he didn't quite make it to the end. He's like a figure skater who went up to try to do a triple axel and landed and fell down.
I really have nothing to add to those statements. It's been a really fun time hanging out with you guys. We're going to try to upload all these videos on Monday. We got content coming Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll see what we can even do tomorrow as Villanova wraps up its Villanova wraps up its Big East tenure. NCAA tournament 14 days away.
Exactly. So we'll be covering Villanova tomorrow, and we'll also be covering Super Tuesday, the results. Again, we're everything about sports, but you also find us with politics and pop culture. So stay tuned, stream us. The nice thing is, if you're not interested in the topic, you don't have to click, but if you are, scream. You don't have to listen all 20 minutes. Just stream it. It's a beautiful technology. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to Fans Interference, this show. And on behalf of Spencer G., I'm Bruce the Sports Doc, signing off. Have a good night.